I think it's without a doubt that many consider Makoto Shinkai to be one of the greatest modern-day anime filmmakers. Best known for his 2016 film Your Name, Shinkai has 12 works cited in his filmography, all of which he's directed. Although his films are primarily focused on romance, none of them are conventional in any sense of the word, often exploring a variety of themes relating to the human condition, as well as introducing the occasional fantasy or even science fiction element. Although not all his films have been consistent in terms of quality, they remain thought-provoking, intriguing, creative, and at the very least, gorgeous in terms of his visuals. In this 4-part series, I'll be examining 4 of his better-known films, as well as providing my interpretation of the events portrayed and their deeper meaning to the best of my abilities. I've ordered the films both chronologically in terms of the release date, and by the particular motifs they delve into. Hopefully, by the end of this series, you would have an improved understanding of some of his more popular works, and perhaps greater appreciation for some of his more controversial ones. 5 centimeters per second, released in 2007, is the story of Takaki Tono, a seemingly regular Japanese boy. The film is separated into 3 shorts, or episodes, each portraying a particular period in his life, ranging from elementary to middle school, to high school, and eventually, him as a working adult. Each short is focused on the ups and downs of Takaki's emotional life, its influence on his behavior, and how that affects those close to him. Unlike some of Shinkai's other works, which can be said to have dual male and female protagonists, Takaki is undoubtedly the single protagonist of his story, the reason for which would soon be apparent. The film opens up with Takaki and his childhood friend Akari as elementary students. The two share very much in common, with them both being transfer students and prone to illness. Despite their classmates' harassment, they soon form a very strong bond and friendship, which culminates in Akari promising to view cherry blossoms with them again the following year. She also mentions how the cherry blossoms fall at a speed of 5 centimeters per second, a recurring motif throughout the story. We flash forward a couple years later, with Takaki now attending a different middle school due to Akari having moved away. We are treated to a montage of Takaki's new life, overlaid with Akari narrating the letters she has been writing to him. This montage contrasts the previous scenes depicting their childhood, utilizing much more muted colors as opposed to the bright pink of the cherry blossoms, as well as having Takaki's face either masked by shadows or completely obscured, indicating his sense of loneliness and mundanity. Takaki is never shown to smile or interact socially with anyone besides a casual conversation. He simply goes on with his daily life and routine, which has now been rendered meaningless and hollow without the presence of Akari. Takaki eventually writes back, and the two decide to meet in Iwafune Station before Akari is scheduled to move again, this time further across country. As he makes his way to the scheduled location, he reminisces about the night Akari told him she was moving away.
転校西中はどうすんだせっかく受かったのに
栃木の公立に手続きするってごめんね
いやあかりが謝ることないけど
葛飾のおばさん家から通いたいって言ったんだけどもっと大きくなってからじゃないとダメだって
分かったもういいよもういい
Very little words are actually exchanged, but their mutual dread is conveyed through the excellent voice acting, as well as framing. It's also revealed he wrote a confessional love letter to Akari, intending to hand it to her when they meet. From here on out, things start going not exactly as planned. The trains are increasingly delayed due to snow, and Takaki soon finds himself well past the scheduled meeting time of 7 p.m. The announcement of delays are seemingly never ending, and as you witness Takaki move from train to train, checking the time while passengers dwindle around him, you begin to feel his anxiety and frustration. This is further emphasized by the lack of music, which allows the audience to divulge more of their attention to the atmosphere depicted on screen. This all culminates in a sudden gust of wind blowing away his letter, as well as his train being stranded mid-journey. In an act of despair, Takaki removes his watch and places it on the counter, instead of opting to drown himself in memories of the past for the next hours. When Takaki finally arrives at the station near midnight, stepping into the waiting room, he discovers this scene. I truly do love this one frame, and it's probably my favorite in the entire film. It's not only aesthetically gorgeous, where the framing of Akari slumped down alone and the ever so subtle lighting from the boiler imbues it with an almost dreamlike quality that's very hard to describe. It's almost like an oil painting brought to life. It's interesting to note that we are never shown Akari's face again since departing with Takaki. Even in his imagination, her face is always obscured.
電車で書いています。
手紙から想像するあかりはなぜかいつも一人だった。
And I think that's intentional on Shinkai's part. The point is to build up that same feeling of anticipation that Takaki is experiencing. Every stylistic or narrative choice Shinkai has made up to this point, and will make in the future, are all to serve the purpose of enhancing the viewer's vicarious experience. Only by feeling what Takaki does can we truly understand the weight of his experiences, and only by understanding the weight of his experiences can we understand the choices he makes, and ultimately, the thematic meaning of the narrative. As we're finally given an Akari face reveal, the two sit down and have an adorable couples moment.
Oishii.
そう、普通のほうじ茶だよ。
ほうじ茶初めて飲んだ。
嘘、絶対飲んだことあるよ。
そうかな。
そうだよ。それからこれ、私が作ったから味の保証はないんだけど、よかったら食べて。
ありがとう。お腹空いてたんだ、すごく。
どうかな。
今まで食べたものの中で一番美味しい。
大げさだな。
本当だよ。
きっとお腹が空いてたからよ。
そうかな。
そうよ。私も食べようと。
The couple then make their way to the sakura tree Akari mentioned in her letters, where the two share a fateful and long-awaited kiss and spend the night together.
So その瞬間、永遠とか心とか魂とかいうものがどこにあるのか分かった気がした。
It's a very heartwarming and emotional scene, especially after understanding what Takaki and Akari both endured for this moment. I also very much appreciated Shinkai's decision to opt out of a cheesy close-up of the scene, instead choosing to cut to a wide shot of the two under the sakura tree. Considering the significance of the tree in their relationship, I thought this was a fitting choice that added a bit more meaning to this interaction. This happiness is short-lived, however, as Takaki soon comes face to face with the harsh reality of life. This is their final moment together. This revelation, to an extent, is also one directed at the audience. Takaki having gone through so much for this meeting, the two being basically a match made in heaven, and the dreamlike visuals all serve to hint at an ending where Takaki reunites with Akari, the two confessing their love for one another, and happily ever after ending as if out of a fairy tale or rom-com. However, in reality, life is often unrewarding of your efforts, and indifferent to your feelings. Life is fair only in that it is unfair for everyone. In that sense, this revelation succeeds in subverting the audience's expectations. The next day, the two say their farewells. Takaki promises to write to her, and it's revealed that Akari wrote her own letter but refrained from giving it to him. In the end, both of them were aware of their respective predicaments. Having already demonstrated their feelings for one another, and knowing that their relationship would never come to fruition, the letter wouldn't have achieved anything but caused Takaki pain further down the line. Indeed, Takaki himself remarks that the letter no longer served a purpose. The episode ends with a wide shot of the moving train, as Takaki ponders on the importance of his final interaction with Akari, as well as his lingering feelings for her.
それだけを考えながら僕はいつまでも窓の外の景色を見続けていた。
The episode begins with what appears to be an older Takaki and Akari set in this fantasy-esque, otherworldly backdrop. It's clear that this scene isn't taking place in real life, but instead in his imagination. We are then introduced to the point of view character for this episode, Kanaya Sumida, a girl attending the same high school as Takaki in the new island setting of Tanegashima. It's established that she liked him since first meeting him, but doesn't have the courage to confess. passionate about surfing despite never having succeeded, and extremely doubtful and insecure as to her future. All these traits are interconnected when it comes to her central motivation, and helps build her as a very vulnerable, insecure, but at the same time sympathetic character that many audiences the same age will be able to resonate with. As we see her and Takaki interact, we begin to see a side to his character that we couldn't in the first episode. She behaves generally nice and friendly towards her, but at the same time seems cold and detached. He consoles her about her issues and insecurities, but when pressed to divulge his own feelings, he always seems to hold back.
明日のこともよくわからないのよね。
多分誰だってそうだよ。
嘘？遠野くんも？
もちろん。
全然迷いなんてないみたいに見える。
まさか迷ってばかりなんだ。俺できることを何とかやってるだけ。余裕ないんだ。
そっか。そうなんだ。
After learning that Takaki is also unsure as to his future, Kanae finally gains the self-confidence and motivation needed to move forward in life and overcome her problems. This is symbolically represented by her managing to successfully surf a wave for the first time, the brighter, more colorful visuals, the uplifting music, and her decisiveness when purchasing beverages.
あれ、スミダ、今日はもう決まり？
うん。
On the same day, she makes up her mind about confessing to Takaki as they ride back home on their usual route. On a side note here, it's interesting how Shinkai uses simple ambient noises to generate two distinct atmospheres in two scenes. During Kanae's conversation with Takaki on the hill, the cicadas chirping and the wind conveys a calm and tranquil atmosphere.
今日は単身置き場で会えなかったからさ。
私も。彼は優しい。時々泣いてしまいそうになる。
While the exact two ambiences were used later as she attempts to confess, but this time creates one of anxiety and unease.
ここまで来れば近いから、それにちょっと歩きたいんだ。
I know that the ambients aren't perfectly identical, but I just wanted to point out how Shinkai manages to set the tone for a scene so masterfully, without the use of any music. Anyway, as Kanea struggles to confess to him due to her embarrassment and inability to fully overcome her insecurities, she begins to cry in frustration.
スミダ。
お願いだから、もう私に優しくしないで。
As they both stare off into the clouds in amazement, Kanea comes to a realization that Taki would never reciprocate her feelings, regardless of her efforts. This ties back to a recurring theme of the episode, that being an innate desire to attain what is seemingly beyond our reach. I don't think it's a coincidence that Shinkai included a space center as part of the setting, that Kanae's moments of self-realization both featured an object flying to the distance, or that Taki's dream sequences all appear to take place in an otherworldly setting. The title of the episode, Cosmonaut, symbolically represents what Kanae and Taki both aspire to be, both hoping to depart on this incredibly long and lonely journey to try to obtain something far, far away and out of their grasp. While Akari is separated from Takaki by their physical distance, him and Kanae are instead separated by emotional distance. If anything, the latter is possibly much more excruciating, being reminded day in and day out of something you can never possibly attain. So close yet at the same time so far. Throughout the episode, we are constantly shown Taki on the phone, seemingly texting someone, which the audience always assumed to be Akari. Near the end, Shinkai subverts our expectations yet again with the reveal that his texts are in fact never sent to anyone. This demonstrates that while Taki is still clinging to his lingering feelings for Akari, he recognizes the impossibility of the relationship and has already become distant from her. It's implied that he's already stopped writing to her a long time ago, despite his promise in the ending of the previous episode. Nonetheless, there is a part of him that wishes for the seemingly impossible, to be able to reach for the stars. I think the decision to use a point of view character, such as Kanae, instead of having the episodes to end Takaki's perspective yet again, was quite genius. From her viewpoint, we begin to see a person that is distant from the people around him, and a person that is very much out of touch with his own emotional being. We as the audience get to see how flawed a character Takaki truly is. Being able to experience the consequences of his decision through a different perspective really emphasizes the impact his previous relationship left behind. His unwillingness to let go and move on has only served to devastate his emotional life, turning him into someone that is similarly out of reach for others, and ironically forcing others, such as Kanae, into a similar position as himself. The episode concludes with the heartbreaking scene of Kanae crying herself to sleep while thinking of Takaki.
遠野くんのことだけを思いながら泣きながら私は眠った。
Episode 3 takes place many years after the events of the previous, with Takaki now a working adult. He appears to be a decently functional human being, and we see him working on his desk before a cherry blossom distracts him, possibly reminding him of a time long past. We see him going for a walk along the roads that he and Akari once traversed as kids, the very place they promised to view the cherry blossoms with each other again the following year. While walking by a train crossing, he seemingly passes by Akari again, prompting him to look back. However, his view is blocked by the incoming train, and the scene abruptly cuts away. It is then that we begin to learn that Takaki's adult life has not been as smooth as we initially imagined. He's employed as a programmer in a company, and while he's seemingly competent at his job and hardworking, it's clear that he has no passion for it. He also managed to get a girlfriend, but although the relationship lasted 3 years, they eventually break up over text message due to Takaki having distanced himself from her.
あなたのことは今でも好きです。3年間付き合った女性はそうメールに書いていた。でも私たちはきっと1000回もメールをやり取りして、多分心は1センチくらいしか近づけませんでした。
It's clear that he's seeking to use work and another relationship to drown out the feeling that something is missing in his life, the desire to fill a hole left in his heart. It's also clear that it hasn't worked, resulting in him ending both his relationship and his employment, and sinking into a state of deep depression. This montage showcasing his spiral into depression shares many similarities with the montage in episode 1, both featuring him performing his daily routine in a gloomy, bleak world. However, this time around the colors are even more muted and grey, and he's not seen socializing with anybody in any capacity. This just goes to show how his mental state has worsened over the years, and how emotions such as regret and sorrow accumulate over the years as a result of an obsession with the past. We then cut to a scene of an adult Akari, who is soon getting married. She discovers the very letter she wrote to Takaki all those years ago, and is suddenly engulfed in the sense of nostalgia. As both characters begin to recount their promise to each other and a dream they recently had.
一緒に桜を見ることができると
私も彼も何の迷いもなく
そう思っていた。
いつでも探しているよどっかに君の姿を向かいのホーム路地裏の窓こんなとこにいるはずもないのに願いがもしも叶うなら今すぐ君のもとへできないことはもう何もない全てかけて抱きしめてみせるよ
The song is One More Time, One More Chance by Masayoshi Yamazaki, and aside from just being a very beautiful song in of itself, I think it perfectly embodies the psyche of Takaki Tono. If only he was given another try, another chance, maybe things could have worked out differently. Maybe if he just tried harder, protested harder to his parents, they could have been together. In this montage of past events, we see a side-by-side contrast of just how differently their lives played out. Akari walks happily along her fiancé, while Takaki is bitterly alone. As we cut back to where we left off in the beginning, with Takaki waiting for the train to pass. When I first saw this ending, I experienced a range of emotions. Confusion, anger, bewilderment. I'm sure many others who saw the film felt the same way. Does he ever get over his attachment to the past? Why is he smiling in the end despite there being nobody there? Is this film taking a piss? I truly feel sorry for the couples who chose to see this film in theaters. They were probably expecting, well, not a cheesy bad movie, but a decent romance with a nice little ending as a cherry on top. Instead, they got this unconventional character drama about life, time, and space with elements of romance, and an ending seemingly out of nowhere. Nothing is resolved, but that's very much the point. The ending is both a reflection of reality, where there are no perfect resolutions, and of Takaki, who ultimately rejected closure. The title of the film and its final episode, 5 centimeters per second, is a reference to the speed at which cherry blossoms fall. Like the cherry blossom, we people also live and grow on certain flowers, but as time goes by, we fall, and thus start to slowly drift apart. This is a film about coming to acceptance with our natural order, and learning to let go, and bring ourselves closure as Akari did. While she considered her time with him as simply memories to be cherished, he allowed his past to consume him, and look what that got him. In the end, he's bitter, alone, and out of a job. I don't think it was a coincidence that we never see Kanae again, or that we only catch glimpses of this new girlfriend of his. Kanae was given so much character development in the second episode, and just when the audience began to empathize with the character and become engaged in her struggles, she suddenly and inexplicably ripped from our grasp. And I think that just lends more perspective on the impact of Takaki's actions on the others around him. His decisions have ultimately isolated himself from the people that might consider him dear, and thus have also isolated them from the audience. Alternatively, I also believe this film to be about appreciating what we have in the present. Due to our inherently flawed perception of time, 5 centimeters per second can seem both agonizingly slow and incredibly fast. While living in the moment, we always take the amount of time we still have for granted. But conversely, I can't count the amount of times I looked back in amazement at how fast time flies. In the blink of an eye, I've already graduated from high school, began studying in college, and about to enter society. We may never know when time will inevitably separate us from those that are dear to us, like Takaki and Akari in the film. And although I haven't yet experienced anything like that in my lifetime, I'm barely a quarter of the way in. And I think the thought of that just allows me to better appreciate and treasure the time I have now with my family and my close friends that have played such a huge part in my life up to this moment, and whom I owe so much to for shaping the person that I am today. I wondered for a while why Takaki smiles at the end, considering his life is practically in shambles. I initially thought this to be a smile born from bitterness, him coming to terms with his inability to overcome his past, and accepting the fact that it has become a part of himself, and learning to live with it. But then I remembered, this was supposed to be a romance of sorts. I believe that, all said and done, witnessing Akari's absence made Takaki truly happy for her. Happy that she, in the very least, did not turn out like him. Happy that she may have another chance at love, at happiness. And I think that's what love is, as cheesy and cliche as it sounds. Takaki truly wished nothing but the best for Akari, despite all his personal issues. In that sense, I think the couples maybe did get what they came for, but probably not in the way that they expected. I truly believe this to be Makoto Shinkai's most introspective, mature, and human film, and it is for those reasons that it is also my favorite anime film of all time. I do hope that this video has helped some people gain a better understanding and appreciation for this work of art, and perhaps help change the minds of others that, like myself in the past, were not so fond of it before. To those of you that stuck around long enough to hear this bit, thank you for listening to my incoherent ramblings. This film has been on my mind for a long time, and I guess the recent state of things just made me want to vent some of that emotion to however many people are watching this video right now. My next video will be on Shinkai's 2013 film, Garden of Words. It'll be interesting to see some of the recurring themes in Shinkai's works, and how they're explored using different avenues. Anyway, if you enjoy my content, like and subscribe I guess. If you don't, then don't. I don't really mind.